She served an old woman a free meal. What happened next left the whole town in tears. I just love hearing stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And today I want to share with you a story that will literally melt your heart. It's about a young woman who worked at a small diner in a quaint little town, and one day, she decided to serve an old woman a free meal. Now, you might be thinking, what's so special about that? But trust me, what happened next will leave you in tears, and it's a story that will stay with you for a long time. So, let's start from the beginning. The young woman's name was Emily, and she had been working at the diner for a few years. She was a kind and compassionate person, always looking for ways to help others, and she loved her job because it allowed her to interact with people from all walks of life. The diner was a popular spot in the town, and Emily knew most of the regular customers by name. She would often chat with them, learn about their lives, and share stories about her own. One day, an old woman walked into the diner. She was dressed in worn-out clothes, and she looked like she had been struggling to make ends meet. Emily noticed that the old woman was looking at the menu, but her hands trembled slightly as she held it. Her eyes moved slowly across the words, but she didn't seem to be reading, more like pretending. Emily had seen that look before. It was the look of someone who was hungry but too proud to admit they couldn't afford a meal. The diner was quiet that morning. The rain outside tapped gently against the windows, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Emily walked over with her usual bright smile.
Good morning, ma'am.
"Can I get you something to drink while you decide?" she asked kindly. The old woman looked up, startled. Her gray eyes were tired, but they held a spark of dignity. "Oh, no thank you, dear. I'm just looking," she said softly. Emily nodded, though she could tell the woman wasn't going to order. She left her for a few minutes, hoping she might change her mind. But when Emily came back, the woman was still sitting there, her eyes glistening as she stared down at the laminated menu. Emily's heart ached. Without thinking too much, she leaned in and said gently, "You know, our soup of the day is really special. Would you like me to bring you a bowl? It's on the house." The old woman looked up, confused. "On the house?" she repeated, as if the words were too kind to believe. Emily smiled. "Yes, ma'am.
Just a small treat from me."
It's chilly outside. Soup helps." Tears welled in the woman's eyes. "You're too kind, dear.
I
don't want to be a burden." "You're not," Emily said firmly. "You're my guest." Minutes later, Emily brought her a steaming bowl of chicken noodle soup, a slice of bread, and a small cup of tea. The woman ate slowly, savoring every bite as if it were a feast. Every now and then, she glanced at Emily with a look of quiet gratitude that said more than words ever could. After finishing, she placed a crumpled napkin beside the bowl and reached into her worn purse. Emily noticed her counting coins, dimes, nickels, even a few pennies, her hands shaking. "Please don't worry about it," Emily said softly. "It's really okay." The woman hesitated, then whispered, "Bless you, child. People don't do things like this anymore." Emily smiled and gently touched her shoulder. "Maybe we should start again." The woman nodded, her lips trembling into a faint smile. Then, after a long pause, she said, "My name's Martha." That small act of kindness could have ended there. Emily could have gone back to wiping tables, refilling coffee, moving on with her day. But something about Martha lingered with her. Over the next week, Martha returned, always around the same time, always sitting in the same corner booth. She never ordered much, sometimes just a cup of tea. Emily would quietly slip her a muffin or half a sandwich when the manager wasn't looking. They talked more with each visit. Martha shared little pieces of her life, how she used to be a schoolteacher, how her husband had passed away, and how her pension barely covered her rent. "I'm not used to asking for help," Martha once said. "I always thought I'd be the one giving it." Emily listened, feeling something stir deep inside her. Her own grandmother had passed a few years earlier, and in Martha, she saw a reflection of that same gentle strength. One afternoon, Emily found Martha waiting by the window again, but this time, she looked different. Her clothes were cleaner, her hair brushed neatly back. She smiled brighter. "You'll be proud of me," she said as Emily poured her coffee. I got a part-time job at the library. It's not much, but it's something. Emily grinned. That's amazing, Martha.
See?
Good things happen to good people. But Martha shook her head.
No, dear.
Good things happen because of good people like you. Those words stayed with Emily long after Martha left that day. Weeks passed, and their friendship deepened. Martha became part of the diner's little world. The other regulars waved when she came in, and even the cook started slipping her extra fries now and then. It was like the whole place had silently agreed that she belonged. But then, one rainy evening, Martha didn't show up. Emily waited until closing, glancing at the door every few minutes. The next day, still nothing. And the day after that, a quiet worry began to gnaw at her chest. She asked around town, even called the library, but no one had seen her. Finally, she went to the small apartment building Martha had once mentioned. The landlord, a gruff man with a thick beard, shrugged. The old lady? Haven't seen her in a week, he said. Didn't pay this month's rent either. Emily's stomach twisted. Do you know if she's okay? He sighed. I don't know, miss. She's all alone. If you're worried, maybe check with the hospital or something. Emily did. She called every hospital in the area until one finally confirmed it. There was a Martha Benson admitted 3 days ago. She rushed to the hospital, heart pounding. When she found the right room, she stopped at the doorway. Martha lay there, pale but peaceful, an oar in her arm and a faint smile when she saw Emily. You came, Martha whispered. Of course I came, Emily said, fighting back tears. You scared me. Martha chuckled weakly. Didn't mean to. Guess my old heart's just tired. Emily took her hand gently. You're going to be okay. You'll be back at the diner in no time. But Martha only smiled and said, Promise me something? Anything. Keep being kind, even when nobody's watching. Emily nodded, her throat too tight to speak. 2 days later, Martha passed away peacefully in her sleep. When Emily heard the news, she sat in the diner's back booth and cried. But she also remembered Martha's words and decided she wouldn't let them fade. The diner felt emptier without Martha. Her corner booth stayed vacant, as if the air itself refused to fill the space she'd left behind. Emily still caught herself glancing at that seat every morning, half expecting to see the old woman's soft smile and her shaky hand lifting a cup of tea. For days, Emily went through her routine in silence. She refilled coffee mugs, took orders, and greeted regulars with the same smile, but her heart wasn't in it. She'd lost more than a customer. She'd lost a friend. One afternoon, as the lunch rush died down, the mailman came in with a small envelope. For you, he said, handing it to Emily. No return address. The handwriting was delicate, looping, like someone who once taught penmanship. Emily's chest tightened. She recognized it immediately. Martha. Her fingers trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a folded piece of paper that looked like a check. She unfolded the letter first. My dear Emily, if you're reading this, I've gone somewhere better. Don't be sad, sweetheart. You brought light into my last days in a way I'll never forget. I used to think the world had grown cold, that kindness was something people only talked about but rarely showed. You proved me wrong. This check is not a fortune, but it's what little I could leave behind. I want you to use it for others, the way you helped me. Maybe a free meal for someone who needs it. Maybe a warm place for a stranger. You'll know what to do. You always have. With love, Martha Benson. Emily looked down at the check. Her eyes widened. It was for $10,000. Her knees went weak. Martha had barely been able to afford rent, yet somehow, she had left this behind. Emily knew she couldn't just pocket it. Martha's wish was clear. The money wasn't for her. It was for others. That night, Emily sat at the diner counter long after closing, thinking. The neon sign outside flickered softly, casting a glow on the empty booths. She could almost hear Martha's voice. Keep being kind, even when nobody's watching. And then it hit her. The next morning, Emily walked into work early and asked to speak with the owner, Mr. Henderson. He was a practical man in his 50s, with a gruff voice but a decent heart. I want to start something, Emily said. A fund, like a small account where people who can't afford meals can eat here for free. We'll call it Martha's Table. Mr. Henderson raised an eyebrow. Free food? Emily, we're barely breaking even as it is. I'll use the money she left me to start it, Emily said quickly. It'll cover the first few months. After that, maybe the community will help. The owner hesitated, then sighed. You're serious, huh? She nodded. Completely.
He rubbed his chin.
All right, kid. Let's try it. But don't say I didn't warn you. It's hard to make kindness profitable. Emily smiled softly. Maybe it doesn't need to be. Word spread quickly through the small town. A handwritten sign appeared on the diner's door the next day. Martha's Table, if you're hungry and can't pay, this meal's on us. At first, a few people came hesitantly. A single mother with 2 kids, a man who'd lost his job at the mill, an old veteran living out of his truck. Emily treated each one like family. No judgment, no pity, just kindness. And then something unexpected happened. Customers started leaving money in a glass jar labeled for Martha. Some left $1, some 20. Others dropped off groceries or baked goods to share. Soon, Martha's Table became more than just a fund. It became a movement. The local newspaper picked up the story. The headline read, Diner honors late teacher's legacy with kindness fund. People from neighboring towns began to visit, not just for the food but for the feeling. A warmth seemed to fill the diner again, the same kind of warmth Martha once brought in with her quiet smile. One chilly December evening, Emily was wiping down the counter when a man in a worn jacket stepped in. His face was tired, but his eyes were kind. He ordered a cup of coffee and sat in the same booth where Martha used to sit. After a while, he waved Emily over. You must be the young woman who started this, he said, gesturing toward the Martha's Table sign. Emily nodded modestly. I just helped keep her kindness going. He smiled faintly. I knew her, you know. Martha Benson. She taught me in 5th grade. I hadn't seen her in decades, but I'll never forget how she made every kid feel special, even the ones who didn't believe in themselves. Emily's eyes softened. That sounds like her. The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. This is from a few of her former students. We read about what you did. We want to help keep it going. Inside was another check, this one for $5,000. Emily covered her mouth, speechless. I don't know what to say. He smiled. Say thank you by feeding someone else. Over the next few months, Martha's Table grew beyond anything Emily imagined. Volunteers joined in, schools held small fundraisers, and even the town mayor stopped by for lunch one afternoon. You've turned this diner into the heart of the town, he told her.
But Emily didn't see it that way.
She wasn't the hero. Martha was. She was just following the example of one woman's quiet grace. On the first anniversary of Martha's passing, Emily organized a small memorial dinner at the diner. The place was packed, regulars, townsfolk, even people who'd never met Martha but had been touched by her story. Emily stood at the front, holding a framed photo of Martha, her eyes gentle, her smile faint but full of light. Some people change the world with grand gestures, Emily began, her voice trembling slightly. But others do it with small acts of kindness. Martha didn't have much, but what she gave changed all of us. She reminded us that compassion doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be real. A hush fell over the diner. Some people cried quietly. Others bowed their heads. When the dinner ended, a little girl walked up to Emily and handed her a drawing, a picture of an old woman serving soup to someone smiling. Above it, the child had written in crayon, "Be kind like Martha." Emily knelt down, tears in her eyes. That's beautiful, sweetheart. She'd love that. Years later, the diner would still stand. The booths would change, the paint would fade, but the small framed photo of Martha Benson would always hang near the register. Beneath it, a brass plaque would read, "In memory of a woman who taught us that one act of kindness can feed a whole town." And every time someone who couldn't afford a meal came through those doors, Emily, or whoever took her place, would smile and say the same words that started it all. Don't worry about it. You're my guest. Because kindness, once given, never really ends. It only grows one meal, one heart, one story at a time.